Hi, welcome back to the Counterfeit Emotions podcast. I'm Curtis Morley, and I'm an emotionologist. Thank you for joining us again. And today I am so excited because I have my decades-long friend, Kyle Reyes, here with us. And today we're going to talk about how to unify in a world that seems to be more and more divided every day. We're going to talk about how to see people in truth, how to understand, how to see their hearts rather than what's on the outside. And Kyle is such a dear friend, but he also is the VP at Utah Valley University,
Yeah.
and is someone that, well, shoot, we've been down the road. We've
Yeah.
sat at
Yeah.
on the sidelines of ball games. We've been at ribbon cuttings. We served on the board of trustees with Elder Matt Holland.
Yeah.
We've been at each other's events. Like, we've gone
It's
down the
true.
road a ways, Kyle.
We go back. We go back. And it's been an absolute pleasure, Curtis.
It has. It really has. And I'm so excited about today's topic because I truly believe this is one of the most important topics that we can bring up. And I look at the world today and I see that one of the biggest tragedies is that we live in a world of disconnection
Hmm.
that masquerades as connection. We live in a world of social media where everyone has an opinion
Hmm.
without a face,
Hmm.
where it's easy to see a line of text or a comment and create an object out of that
Hmm.
rather than seeing the person. And I'm so excited to talk today because you've got your book out,
Yeah.
which is fantastic, The Lens of Humanity.
Yep.
There it is. And phenomenal effort. How long did it take you to write?
Well, as you know, having been an author, most authors would say it's taken me, decades to write because the thoughts have been bouncing around in the head for a while. But in earnest, about 5 years, including some of the research that I did for the book. So yeah, it's been a labor of love.
That's fantastic. And if we can like backtrack,
Sure.
if we can go back in your history,
Sure.
would teenage Kyle recognize the man that's here in the studio today? Would
I
he even know who this man is?
uh no, no, that's pretty an emphatic and clear no. And for me, that's it. It speaks to why I'm so passionate about education overall, mentoring overall, and just human connection overall. Because it's through education, mentoring, and human connection that if I were to go back and talk to teenage Kyle, even if I gave him a pep talk, I'm not sure he would have seen the possibilities or seen the, the ways that human connection, mentoring, and education could transform my life. And so, no, I think uh, we all are on this journey of discovery of self. We're doing this where we belong, where we fit. Frankly, a lot of the book stems from my own personal journey of navigating um, navigating differences of religion within my own home, navigating differences of language and country of origin within my own background, navigating differences in interests and those things, and feeling like I've wanted to be a bridge builder from day one and see if I could connect seemingly disparate things and finding ways to connect. And that's continued on. And so maybe that's been the thread that has been woven through my life and my career.
And who was that Kyle? Who was that teenage Kyle? I know I've heard the story, but tell our listeners who that Kyle was.
Yeah, to be fair, and it's not some rags to riches story or anything like that. My mom, but both my parents have passed on, and so they continue to be angels in my life. But my mom was an educator from the Big Island of Hawaii. She's Hawaiian Japanese. She raised us in Los Angeles. She was a public school teacher and then a principal. And so it's not like I didn't have examples in my own home, right? My father, an artist, immigrated from the Philippines and gave me a sense of appreciating the aesthetic of our community. But I took it in a direction of, I don't know, graffiti and other interesting artistic avenues. And then again, on top of that, I've had older siblings who were amazing. My older brother Sean, my older sister Noreen. Um, People have tried to get me to say, unsavory things about them just for fun, and I really can't. They were just great examples in all aspects of my life. education. They were the top of their class. I was not. I was doodling on Scantrons while they were getting straight A's and those things. And so, um, yeah, for a long time, I felt like I was just the artist kid of the family who collected comic books and baseball cards and those things until, mentors opened my eyes that my art was a vehicle for storytelling.
Mm.
And that became a massive shift in my life because everything from then became a part of adding to the toolkit of storytelling, right? Education. I learned the language and the words to own my own story. Connections with other people, drawing upon their stories became sort of an obsession of mine of learning about people's stories and then how that related to my own story. So yeah, that teenage Kyle probably didn't think much beyond paints and spray cans and the canvas. Um,
A little graffiti
a
on the
little
streets.
graffiti, a little bit. So
That's fantastic. Like I look at you now and I look at the impact that you've had on so many people's lives. It's so clear on the students at UVU, on
thanks.
me, on some of the great leaders in the community. Like you've had a tremendous amount of impact in people's lives.
Thank you.
And yeah, you're welcome. And like I look at that and I think about even the title of your book, Lenses of Humanity. You talk about growing up in a blended multicultural home.
Hmm.
Your dad was Filipino,
Hmm.
your mom was American Japanese,
And
and
Hawaiian and
oh,
Japanese. Yeah.
Hawaiian and Japanese.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
And so you had that mixed culture in your
Hmm.
home. Now in your current
Hmm.
family,
It continues.
Michelle, yeah, Michelle, which tribe is she?
Yeah.
Navajo?
Navajo. Yeah.
Navajo.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. And so now you've got Navajo added to that culture,
Hmm.
and you've done a phenomenal job of being able to see people. And that's one thing I love about you is that you have this way, I guess, a lens of seeing the humanity in people. And tell us about like the concept in your book. Like
Sure.
what's the base premise
Yeah.
of the book?
Thank you. I've the answer to that question just continues to evolve every time it's asked, partly because I keep going deeper in understanding what humanity means to other people. So the evolution of how I got to the book itself was formed from, again, my deep desire to connect with other human beings. I've been at Utah Valley University for nearly 23 years. So I've had some experiences watching the journeys of my students, learning from those journeys and realizing for all of our different opinions and opinions in all aspects of life, ideology, political realm, what is a good education? I mean, all of those questions. Um, I've been fascinated by how and why people arrive to their views of the world and their
Mm,
place in the world. And as an educator, it started with my desire, first as an educator, to see my students and really meet them where they are. I know that's maybe cliche for a lot of educators to say, oh, I want to meet the students where they are, whether it's in K 12 settings or in higher ed. But that became something that was very much an authentic desire of mine because I wanted, in an open admissions university, we wanted to make sure that no matter what experiences and life stories that people were bringing to our campus, what could we do better every day to see them and to not have them fit into some cookie cutter mold of, in order for you to be successful, you have to change to our standards. We definitely need standards in education, but in every way possible, I wanted to authentically meet students where they are. And that led me down a road of some research around what do humans yearn for when they join new communities, when they step into new spaces.
mhm,
And and we yearn for safety and stability. We yearn for human connection, belonging, and we yearn for purpose and value and validation. Like, am I going to add value here? Does anybody even recognize that I can add value? And those findings then led to a framework where I said, if I want to actually help people on a daily basis, whether it's individuals or organizations, reframe this journey of understanding people's humanity, then how can we frame it in a way that's practical, that has application in our everyday lives? And that's where the four lenses of humanity were born. The 30,000-foot view is the four lenses, the inner lens, looking inward first, starting with ourselves, to make sure we recognize that we bring to every relationship our own stuff, our own baggage, biases, worldviews, and those things, and just becoming more aware of that. Second, context matters in everything that we do. Frankly, the way as we get more into the conversation of counterfeit emotions, I think the way we combat some of the counterfeit that's out there is to actually have meaningful relationships
Mhm.
by getting more context about human stories. Because then we have the counter stories to counter the counterfeit. And then moving into empathy lens, that's on a one-to-one basis, connecting with folks through cultural humility and genuine inquiry. And then finally, how do we build community? Humans create community, and communities are comprised of very unique human stories. And so if we're going to lean into humanity, then we need to recognize that we all want to be a part of community, and we all can make a difference in building community. So that's just treetops.
I love that. And you hit on one of the dyads in the counterfeit emotions framework of belonging versus fitting in,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
where fitting in says you have to change
Mm-hmm.
to be accepted. Belonging says you stay the same and you're accepted.
Mm-hmm.
And with UVU now being the largest school in the state of Utah
Yeah.
and Western region, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not
It's
ready to declare that of the whole
okay,
Western region,
okay.
but I mean, again, in the very near future, we're talking about over 50,000 students, and so that's on par with the biggest in the nation. So yeah,
Yeah. So how do you do that?
yeah,
How do you do that with so many different cultures, so
yeah,
many different people, so many different backgrounds and religions and upbringings and just society in general? Like that's 50,000 individuals.
yeah, yeah.
How do you do that at that level?
I love the way you set that up in terms of the fitting in versus belonging. Another way I like to frame it is accommodation versus assimilation, right? And
Mm,
what I mean by that is if you're talking about the extremes of does the receiving group of the unique individual need to accommodate fully to everything, that meaning that person truly doesn't have to change at all, and we accommodate every aspect of their uniqueness, that's one extreme. Or assimilation is that you change everything to fit into our culture, our expectations, our benchmarks, whatever those might be. And what I like to argue is that it's probably somewhere in the middle, meaning that the person coming into any group, me joining, moving into a new community, my kids going to that elementary school for the first time, I would hope that we as human beings can read things in both directions. That as the individual, I can say, you know what, let me pick up the emotional cues of the community I'm just about to step into.
when in Rome.
A little bit, right? When in Rome, so that number one, I can get the lay of the land, but also two, I can understand this didn't just happen. This culture is comprised of humans making some decisions. And so we would actually hope that UVU students come to UVU and grow, meaning don't just stay the same completely,
Yeah.
but like, oh, I didn't really realize I could grow and develop and expand on what I'm already bringing to the table. Then on the flip side, what are we as an institution and an organization doing with which, by the way, is so much harder than it sounds, right? But how do we at scale personalize the teaching and the services to really communicate to students, I see you. And to be successful here, I want to give you some cues and clues on how to navigate the system of higher education, how to navigate UVU, how to be successful here. Because there is a community already established, right? We're not going to say to a student, come and then just choose your own adventure fully, right? It's like, come and can we just let you know the horizon, the landscape of options, and coach you along the way. But before we do that, tell me your story, because
Mm,
I can't help you navigate this if I don't know your unique journey to get here. So it's that both and approach of a little bit of give from both sides on helping that feel the true sense of belonging.
that's fantastic. And I really love how you said that. Specifically the order of operations
Yeah.
is yes, come to a place where you're going to grow and you're going to change and you're going to become more. But tell me your story first.
First.
Tell me your story first. Let me see you.
Yeah.
And then grow with me.
In fact, Curtis, if I could just interject one story that brings us home. You remember back when I was serving as a chief of staff in the president's office to our former president, we would have students that would make their way to the president's office thinking, you know what, I've tried every situation. I'm getting no's everywhere I go. Surely the president's office can fix this for me. And it was everything from parking to financial aid to when are we going to start a football program? I mean, everything was on the table.
I'm hoping that one's still on the table.
Everything was on the table when students came to the president's office. Well, what would happen is typically the president was not available just for the busyness of his schedule. And so I would meet with the student. And in some cases, I could tell the students were very emotional, very exasperated, like, this is my last stop before I just say I'm done with trying. And I remember making a conscious effort to say, Kyle, I know this is just another appointment, but not for this student. For this student, this could be a make or break moment. So before I try to fix the problem, humanize the moment. And when the student would come and meet with me, I'd say, before we talk about whatever it is that you came to talk to me about, can you just tell me just briefly, your journey to UVU? I just want to make sure I understand the full context of all that you've been navigating already before I go and try to help you. And I will tell you, Curtis, what happened in 90% of the situations was that by the time they got to their actual complaint or concern or stress, the temperature had gone down. The pressure that was building up in that balloon before it could pop was actually let out. Some air was let out of that balloon. And so by the time they addressed the situation, two things happened. Their feelings went down because they were actually being listened to as a human being by somebody on campus. And I'm not saying that others on campus didn't listen to them, but maybe they were in fix-it mode. But the other thing that happened was on my side. I realized, Kyle, this is not just well, per policy, we can't do that, or no, and good luck. In that moment, I could not unhear their story. And so it created this desire in me to say, I don't want to hand them off to another person just to say no. Let's figure out how we can best help this person. I'm still going to be candid with them about options or maybe lack of options. I'm sorry I can't get you a parking spot right next to your first class every morning. But let's talk about what's really stressing you out. Because I heard your whole story, and I think there's more at play here. So that's just an example of that. Hey, if we can hear story first, it helps both parties in so many ways.
That's so powerful. Humanize the person before solving the problem.
Yeah.
If we can see them as their true self, as a human, as one of us, then just like you said, the rest is easy. It's, sure, there may be a disappointment somewhere in there, but when they know that you care, I don't know if you remember Ed Pinniger.
Of course.
Do you remember?
Of course.
One of my favorite institute teachers.
Oh.
Over and over and over again, he would say, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
And it's so true that being able to see someone, truly see them, see their soul, see who they are inside, without the mask, without the big emotions, that creates that connection that you're talking about. That creates that place of safety that they're like, you know what? I think Kyle really sees me. I feel okay. And I guess I don't need that parking spot in the front of my first class every morning. And just to be seen, just to be heard. And that goes well beyond education or business. That goes into family life or relationships.
For sure.
That goes into the political realm. Being able to see people, even if, and especially if, they don't have the same views as us.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the key skills in life. So how do people get there?
Yeah.
How do we, Kyle, how do we heal the world? Let's get into it. Let's just dive right in.
Yeah.
How do we heal the world in a world that seems ever more divisive?
Yeah.
Where if you don't have my beliefs, then you're against me.
Yeah.
how do we bridge that? How do we come together in a way that says, I see you as a human, and a human with different experiences than
Mhm.
mine, and
Mhm.
that's okay. How do we sit down together
Mhm.
and still talk it out with love, with care, with compassion? How do we do that, Kyle? I mean, this is like the
The big question.
$10,000 question. Here we go.
Well, I'll keep my answer to about 3 hours.
Okay.
No, but you're exactly right. And really every time I'm speaking at a conference or workshops or whatever, and this question comes up, um, it varies in terms of what answer people are ready to receive. And here's what I mean by that. Sometimes people want an answer that validates where their stance is. They want an answer that says, "Tell me I'm right, Kyle. That I'm the
Mhm.
one that's right and everybody else is wrong." And I start from a place of saying, "Okay, what I love about your work, the work that my wife is involved in terms of mindset and understanding thoughts and thought patterns and those things, very tied to your work, and how it connects to my research and the work that I do is it actually, for a moment, let's bracket and let's step back from the political parties and those things for a moment and just understand humans and understand human psyche and synaptic connections and all the things that are happening in the brain for just a moment. And for me, it's to be able to understand that we have experiences, and I've been coached on this by a good mentor, Roger Connors. Roger is well known in the community, and he talks about how experiences lead to beliefs, beliefs lead to behaviors, behaviors lead to outcomes. So to really start to analyze our own, if we want to change our outcomes and our behaviors, don't focus on the behavior, focus on the actual beliefs that lead to such behaviors, and then what are the experiences that have led us to look at the world the way we do. And so for me, not that it's ever sequential, but it has to start with a level of just humility, of us to say, first of all, my brain is doing stuff that I didn't realize it was doing from the time I was little. It's gathering information about how I, Kyle, fit into the world. And my brain is protecting me. My
Mhm.
brain is creating efficiencies. My brain is saying, Kyle, I want to get you to comfort. I want to get you to a place of stabilization. So,
Yeah.
without you knowing it, Kyle, consciously, conscientiously, I'm going to protect you, which means that I'm going to do some mental gymnastics for you to have you get back to stasis, like have you get back to a stability. And the way that I do that is to trick you, Kyle. And so that means whenever somebody has a differing opinion, just ignore it and walk away. Don't engage, because the brain is saying, I'm trying to get you to a place of comfort. And that's uncomfortable. What else? Well, choosing between a whole bunch of diverse options, the easiest thing to do is go with what you know and what you've been exposed to. Why? For efficiency purposes. The brain is like, it's the most efficient. You know that. Go that direction. You know the outcome.
Yeah. I think
Boom.
the research says it's 91% of every day is on autopilot.
Autopilot, right?
It's the exact same thoughts. I wake up, I brush my teeth,
Mhm.
it's the exact same thoughts almost every day.
Yeah.
And we have just a fraction of our mind that actually creates unique thoughts in the day.
So amen with that research. The reason why I start there in an opportunity like this where I can go more in depth is because I've had so many people say, oh my goodness, this whole time I thought this was just some political party debate, but this is actually a human understanding kind of education. Because what happens then is once we understand what our brain is doing to us all the time for survival, for pleasure, for safety, for comfort, for those things, and for efficiency, then we can say, okay, now that I know that, let me take control of my brain a little bit more. Let me take control of my life. And let me see if I can be more deliberate about human connection, human understanding. Let me do the work of getting more context about the world around me. So, what does that mean? One of the things I write about is that we will have opportunities for dissonance throughout our lives. So, in music, we know that dissonance causes us to lean in and to listen a little bit closer. There are times when a melody is going along, and there's a reason why melodies can lull us to sleep. There's a reason why melodies are played in an elevator for comfort and peace.
Hmm.
Dissonance in any score is purposely put there to create emotion and to have us lean in and say that didn't feel right.
Yeah.
And what do we seek as human beings? Again, the brain, what do we seek? Resolution. So in music theory, in music, in all of music, our brain is saying that didn't feel right. We hope that this music score resolves itself and comes back and makes me feel better. In life, every time somebody has a different opinion on social media, in person, in a public forum, our brain says, resolve, this doesn't feel right. And so what happens typically is we say, well, then let's disengage. Let's cut off connection because that's the quickest way to resolve. And what I argue is if we're going to get better at this, if we're going to heal together, we all have to do our part to say, I'm getting more context by engaging in a healthy way. So one of the things I talk about is the power of healthy dissonance is to say, naturally, I kind of feel myself wanting to pull back and not engage with somebody that has a different opinion than me. But for a moment, can I pause and say, they didn't just come up with this yesterday. There was a world and a lifetime of experiences that led them to have this strong belief. And before I go toe-to-toe with them to win some debate, I'm actually going to lean in and listen to their story and get context. Because I believe that dissonance, that I need to work through that, and the real resolution is going to come through that dialogue.
Yeah.
Before I continue, any thoughts in response to that?
Yeah. It's funny because most of my life I thought that love was the antidote to anger. It's not. I always thought, oh, if somebody's mad, what do I need to do? I need to love them more. I need to serve them, or I need to not listen necessarily, but I need to placate and be the nice guy, and I'm just going to love them to death. And it turns out love is not the antidote to anger. Curiosity is. Curiosity, if a doctor could prescribe a pill called curiosity, where somebody has a differing opinion to me, that's a great thing. That's not just a good thing, that's a great thing. Because if we were all the same, if we all had the exact same set of beliefs, this life would be just horribly boring.
Yeah.
And not only that, we would never progress.
Exactly.
Because of the differences. Because that you and I grew up in different places, that you have a different cultural background than I. That's a beautiful thing. Because now I can learn, now I can grow, and so can you, because we can hear each other. And instead of saying, oh, it's either anger or love, no, it's just curiosity. It's, I'm going to sit, I'm going to see you, I'm going to listen to you. And I think about the movie The Black Klansman, where he invited the Grand Dragon to meet him in a hotel room.
Yeah.
Shows up and his guards literally have weapons and make threats of death. And he said, could I just sit down and can we just talk? Can we see each other as people, as humans? Can we see the humanity inside each other? And it wasn't a quick transition, but after years of going back and meeting with him and seeing him, pretty soon they started going to each other's houses. And then pretty soon they were at major life events for each other. And pretty soon he stepped down as the Grand Dragon of the KKK, saying, I was wrong. I was absolutely wrong. This isn't an object that I can hate. This is a human that I can love.
I love that you said curiosity. I think I would, where I would add there is, and again, I think you would agree with this, genuine curiosity. And here's what I mean by the genuine part, right? And it's inherent, knowing you, Curtis, that's inherent. But the reason why I'm so specific about the genuine part is sometimes people are like, yeah, Kyle, I ask questions. And I'm
Hmm.
like, but are you asking questions to debate better? Or are you asking questions to learn and understand? The
Yes.
curiosity has to come from a place of humility to say, I we both voted for different people, but in this moment, I genuinely believe that I could probably learn something from you.
Yeah.
So I'm going
Yeah.
to ask questions of genuine, like I'm genuinely curious how and why you arrived to the views you arrived to. And by the way, the goal is not consensus. The goal is not that we vote for the same person at the end of this exchange. The goal is understanding and not demonizing one another anymore.
Yes.
And so we might walk away saying, okay, thank you. I still disagree with you on certain issues, but at least I understand where you're coming from.
And that's okay.
It is.
That's absolutely okay.
It
And
is.
and you hit on the counterfeit. Like the counterfeit of curiosity is suspicion.
Mm-hmm.
It's still asking questions. It's still putting that question mark at the end of
Mm-hmm.
the sentence. But one is to connect.
Mm-hmm.
One is to see the other person and truly make that connection. The other is to convict.
Mm.
The other is to say, okay, I'm going to get enough evidence that I'm going to be able to convict you
Yeah.
versus connect with you.
Yeah.
And that is the counterfeit,
Yeah.
is that suspicion. So I think I'm so glad you brought that up, because genuine curiosity is the antidote to
Yeah.
anger. And we see that all through history. All through history. And what's fascinating, and you've actually lived through some of this history yourself,
Mm-hmm.
like very personally,
Mm-hmm.
but um, going back several decades, well, let me ask you this question,
Sure.
and it's okay if you don't know the answer.
Sure.
Most people don't.
You're good.
In the thousands and thousands of people I've asked this to, I've only had 3 people
That's fine.
that knew the answer. And the question is, who is Bobby Seale and Huey Newton? And
Don't know.
you actually may know this.
No. No.
So, and that's okay that you don't, but I think it's important to ask why you don't.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a different question.
Please.
Who's Martin Luther King Jr.?
Yeah. I mean, civil rights leader, Reverend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody knows him.
Mm-hmm.
Every major U.S. city in the country has a Martin Luther King Jr. street,
Mm-hmm.
and the number of high schools and junior highs that are named MLK.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just the U.S., it's around the world.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in India, and they knew who Martin Luther King
Sure.
Jr. was. I've been in England. He changed the world. And the question is, why do you know him and not Bobby Seale and Huey Newton? And just to put context around it, they were the founders of the Black Panthers.
Mm.
They were the ones that created the Black militant group that firebombed cars and killed police officers and rioted. And the question is, why don't you or anyone,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know it either until I looked
Mm-hmm.
it up, but why do we not know them? And I think it's the difference of understanding and curiosity and advocacy versus the counterfeit of anger.
Okay.
That
Yeah.
anger, there was an injustice, and to step back one step,
Sure.
anger, you'll only be angry for 2 reasons. That's it. There's only 2 reasons you'll be angry. The first is danger.
Mm-hmm.
If the bear is coming at you in the
Yeah.
woods,
Yeah.
it is really important to get angry.
Mm-hmm.
It's really important to let the adrenaline flow, let all of the cortisol, the norepinephrine,
Mm-hmm.
all of the brain chemicals flow, so you can pick up the stick and poke the bear in the eye and survive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first reason for anger. The second reason for anger is injustice. And I'll put a word before that: perceived injustice.
Mm-hmm.
Because it may or may not be an injustice.
Sure. Depending on where you're at in that particular issue. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we go back to the civil rights movement, and there was a true injustice. Racism is absolutely an injustice. And one group, Bobby Seale and Huey Newton, they said, I see this injustice, I'm going to take it to anger. Another group, Martin Luther King Jr. and his followers, said, I'm going to take this to advocacy. And instead of hurting, instead of destroying, instead of tearing down, I am going to invite in. And if you look at the etymology of the word advocate, it comes from advocare, a Latin word which means to invite in. Advocate means invite in.
Yeah.
And when you advocate, you can't advocate against something. it's grammatically incorrect. You can't say, I'm going to advocate
Yeah,
against
because you're inviting in.
X. Yeah. It's only grammatically correct to say, I'm going to advocate for.
Mhm.
And when we advocate, it's I'm advocating for me, but I'm also advocating for you. And Martin Luther King Jr., he wasn't going to stand for the injustices, but what he did stand for is he stood at the foot of the Lincoln Memorial with 1 million people
Mhm.
to say,
Yeah.
no, we can't do this anymore. Please come to the table so we can talk, so
Mhm.
we can change, so we can literally reshape the world.
Mhm.
And that's why we know his name and not the others, is because he took advocacy instead of anger as his path.
So much to respond to there. What would you like to do? Is there a follow-up
Please,
question or?
no, just riff, just go.
Yeah, so let me make the connection with what's in your work and counterfeit emotions and that advocacy anger, dichotomy there or tension, and make some connections with one particular lens. And this also comes back to the how do we heal the world? Not that
Yes,
there's some
yes.
magic answer here, but it's part of the answer. It's interesting to me when in the what I argue with is in developing the empathy lens, or for all of us to continue to develop the empathy lens. By the way, you never actually fully arrive as like fully developed, right? It's you're always working on these lenses. I argue that. I wrote the book, and every day I'm checking myself that Kyle, I've got to get better at these
Mm,
lenses, right? The empathy lens, there's four components to this, and I've mentioned a few of them. It starts with some level of cultural humility that you can't proclaim to be a humanity-driven person if you think you know everything about everything. Which means if you don't and you admit it, then other people have value to add to your life through their lived experiences and their humanity. So it starts with cultural humility,
that
that
curiosity.
curiosity, right?
Yeah.
Which leads to the curiosity. The second is genuine inquiry. The genuine inquiry piece is that you can just keep asking questions. That the true way to validate another human is to just keep asking questions. It's not to preach to them or tell them why they're wrong or tell them how smart you are. It's
Yeah.
to be genuinely curious and have that genuine inquiry about like how did you get to that conclusion? Why did you feel so strongly about that issue? Before I respond, that didn't sit well with me, and I'm trying to figure out why. But before I talk about it, tell me how you arrived to that thought and idea. This idea of genuine inquiry, curiosity, it allows us to then say to open the door to the possibilities, right? To diverse stories. Third, courageous empathy is
Mm,
not just empathy for somebody who looks at the world exactly like I do. I have empathy for folks who we share the same beliefs, and so therefore, when something is a threat to our identities or our belief system, then together we unite and we have empathy for each other because we have a shared pain. Courageous empathy says, "I'm going to empathize with somebody who vehemently disagrees with me on an issue because our point of pain, albeit different, is still pain. It's still
yeah.
human pain."
Yeah.
And so the courageous side of the empathy is I'm
Yes.
going to actually have empathy for somebody who may passionately disagree with me on issue X, Y, or Z. Not because, and empathy is not weakness. It's not that call humility, empathy. Kyle, those are words for the weak. No, 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 no.
Oh, no, no, no. Empathy is bravery.
It is.
Yes.
It's bravery. It requires intentionality, strength. The folks that I've looked up to my whole career, folks like you and others that have come into my life that I have seen them demonstrate this, right? That this courageous empathy, the ability to pause for a moment and empathize with somebody else's pain, even if they disagree. The final piece to this on the empathy lens is naming one's experience and advocating for others. So, why do those go hand in hand? I talk about why words matter. And that you and I are both nerds of etymologies and the origins of words, and the power to name one's own experiences matter.
It does.
I share an experience in the book where I've had students who international students who I'm reading out the roster of the students. I try to pronounce their name in their native country and tongue, and they say, "Oh, just call me Susie." Well, but what's your name? Your given name? Oh, it's actually um, you know Shin Yi or Tsoyolma or. And I'm like, well, what would you prefer to be called? Oh, it's easier for everybody to just call me Susie. I'm like, but let me go back to what would you prefer to be called? And this goes back to the belonging, fit in thing. It's like, I know you've navigated American education by just making it easier for everybody else. What validates you as a human? How would you like to be referred to? Soyolma. Then can we use Soyolma from now on? That would be amazing. Am I pronouncing it correctly? Soyolma. Well, kind of. Let's get it right. Then after the class, they come up to me and say, "You're the first teacher in all of my teaching and who ever cared enough to ask me what my actual pronunciation of my first name is."
Wow.
From then on, that student used their given name. Naming things
Wow.
matters. And then why does it matter? Because then some people talk about, Kyle, we're getting too PC. Everybody wants to be referred to as different things and all this stuff. Aren't we getting too politically correct? And I said, here's the thing. I recognize where your opinion comes from. We have to learn new language. And I said, but isn't that amazing that humans can evolve? We can learn new languages. We can learn that if somebody prefers to be called Navajo instead of Indian, or Hopi instead of Native American, whatever it might be, that's wonderful. I'm going to refer to them how they, as a human, want to be referred to. The more diverse the stories that are in our mental book, the more the diverse the library, I should say. It's not that I'm trying to sit here and say, oh man, I'm going to have my faith shaken because there's so many new contexts and stories and perspectives. It's if I really believe that they are a human being that's worth investing in, then in order for me to eventually advocate for them, I have to recognize that they're having a very different lived experience. And they, meaning anybody else other than me, wants to be empowered enough to name their experiences. And so now let me bring it home with one final story on this topic. At UVU over the years, as we tried to communicate to students, we see you. Come as you are. You've heard that mantra. President Tuminez and President Holland had, we're an inclusive university. That was never some woke agenda. That was never some political agenda. That was a human-based agenda. Students, I don't care about your background. I don't care your age. I don't care your original language or country of origin. When you come to UVU, we want to meet you where you're at. And in order to do this, in order to truly advocate for my students, I had to know their stories. And I had to listen. And I had to carve out time to say, the only way I can build a bridge to another landmass is to recognize that they're even there, that it's even worth building, that there is a landmass.
Yeah.
You don't build bridges just to some abyss. You first see, oh, there's a landmass there. Let me build a bridge. If you don't recognize that every human being that you come into contact with has their own world that's worth getting to know, then how could you ever advocate for them? And how could you ever, and when I talk about advocating for my students, or I say when I was a professor in the School of Education, and I would literally say this to my students, and I say, with all due respect, if you're not willing to champion every child in your second grade classroom or every child in your fifth grade classroom, I invite you to leave this profession. I invite you to change your major. Not because I don't think you could probably be a decent teacher, but if you're not showing up every day, authentically believing that every one of those students has potential and that you can actually advocate for them because you're willing to learn their diverse stories, there are so many other professions that allow you to just plug and play and not have to interact with humans on that level. The responsibility of teachers to shape what's possible for young minds is a sacred responsibility. And so I would say this to my students who are going to be licensed teachers. And I said, with all due respect, I respect you all, but please, we don't need any more teachers in our systems who aren't willing to champion every single student that's in their classroom. And when I say champion, I mean advocate for, right? So it just comes back to some of the things that you're referring to.
I think that's how we change the world.
Yeah.
I think that's how we heal the world. This whole conversation is, I do believe curiosity is one of the most transcendent emotions we can
Mhm.
feel. That it truly is transcendent because it does bridge. And the funny thing about anger is when I'm angry or you're angry or anyone's angry, curiosity not only is the antidote for the other person, it's the antidote for
Mhm.
us too.
Mhm.
You cannot be genuinely curious and
Yeah.
angry at the same time. Doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's not possible.
Yeah.
And to be able to see those students as having such great potential. I'll never forget when I was Scoutmaster back when
Mhm.
Scouts was a thing,
Mhm.
and we had this kid. They literally called him the Holy Terror.
Hmm.
In our ward at school, there were 2 teachers that quit because of this kid.
Hmm.
Literally, they listed that as their reason for quitting. And he, his behavior was rough. It was really, really rough. And we were going to go on scout camp. And um, so I had heard that, I was a little concerned about it. And I had heard that there was a teacher in our ward that had him in her class. And I went over and I said, "Hey, is this?" I'm not going to name him.
Sure,
Well,
sure.
I probably wouldn't mind because,
Yeah. He's
we'll
grown up.
yeah. But but I said, "Is he in your class?" And she turned to me and she said, "Yes, isn't he wonderful?" And I looked at her. I'm like, "Wait, what? No, no, no. I'm talking about this kid." And she's like, "Yeah, isn't he wonderful?" And it just, like, my jaw dropped, and I'm just thinking, I'm pretty sure she doesn't hear me because literally teachers
Yeah.
put him as the reason they quit teaching completely. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, he comes in every day early. He sits on the front row. He helps me pass out papers. He stays after to help clean up. And this is the same kid that, other teachers are saying that he's destroying their classroom and, cussing at them and like right in the middle of class. And and I said, that's not the experience that I've heard from everybody else. And she said, I know. I said, why? Why?
Mhm.
And her response was so beautiful. She said, because I see him.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because I see him. And she did, and she believed in him. And he came early to class and he sat on the front
Yeah.
row. And if he came to any of the other classes, he was the Holy Terror. But in her class, because she believed in him, because
Yeah.
she saw him,
Yeah.
he was a different kid. And so with that, we went to scout camp and we went down to Lake Schofield. And and the very first day, I said, all right, we're going to do a competition at the end of this week. It's called the Sons of Helaman, the Moroni Challenge. And we said, whoever embodies this most during the week, the attributes of someone that truly cares, that looks out for each other,
Mhm.
that has faith, all of these things. Whoever that is, at the end of the week, I'll buy them anything they want in the commissary.
Oh,
and,
the commissary. Oh, that's the
and
Costco of scout camp. Yeah.
right. And so afterwards, I pulled him aside and I said, I believe you could be that. I believe that the other kids could see you like that. And he's like, no, no, they'll never see me. And I said, listen, I think they could.
Yeah.
And I want you to believe it too.
It's powerful.
And one night he did everything he could. And one night we got in the canoes and there's an island that you have to do a survival night
Mhm.
on the island with
Mhm.
nothing. You
Mhm.
basically get whatever you can scavenge to make a
Mhm.
shelter and all of that. But we had to take a honey bucket with us. and I said, all the kids are standing there and nobody wants that job because you have to take it over in your canoe and you have to bring it
Yeah.
back in your
Yeah.
canoe. And I said, who wants to take the honey button? And his hand shot up. He said, I'll do it. I'll do it. And he was the kid that was helping others into their canoe.
Yeah.
And he was the kid that would wake up early and make sure the food was cooking. And every single day, he was that kid.
Yeah.
And it was overwhelming. At the end of the week, it was overwhelming. The
Yeah.
other kids, they said, I said, all right, who exemplified it best? And it was him. And sure enough, we went to the commissary and bought this great big knife, this massive knife.
That's cool.
But I believe that's how we change the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is we get curious enough to see people.
Yeah.
We get curious enough to see not just who they are, but who they can become.
Mhm.
I believe that's how we change the world.
Amen. Amen. And what a beautiful story, Curtis. Uh, I just I can only imagine if this other woman and you weren't in his life, offering up that sort of encouraging perspective, that belief, and where he could have ended up. Because there's many others who, because they didn't have mentors in their life do what you did, um, have decided to live lives of anger, right? And I'm not at first. I don't. At first you might say, "Well, haven't they learned?" But then you think, what in their life caused them to get to the point where they're in fear of everything, they're angry at everything. And so even that, even when people come heavily at me with some opinion or something, I've practiced this enough, and it's not natural. We have to practice this. I've practiced this enough to pause and say, that anger is coming from somewhere. And
Yes.
I just don't, I need to know before I don't want to fight fire with fire or react. I just need to know how and why why were they so hurt along the way? And so just that genuine curiosity, it impacts every aspect of our lives. And you said something earlier. It's not just in education. It's in our own homes.
Yeah.
One of
Yeah.
the reality checks in writing this book was, as I was writing it from a very, educator, professional lens and everything. And then all of a sudden I realized, if my kids read this, would it actually resonate with them? Meaning,
Mm.
would they see in the home that their father was walking the talk that he's putting out there to the public? And I remember having my final editing session be my wife, and also just having conversations with my kids about, you know, changes and what does it mean to have genuine curiosity about how they're experiencing life and some of those things. And so anyway, it impacts every aspect of our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love what you said is we think, well, why didn't they learn it? Or why are they so blinded by their beliefs and all? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. The fact is they didn't learn it, or they do have a belief and there's a reason behind the belief.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of whether we understand it, that's the beauty, is we get to say some powerful words. Tell me more.
Mm-hmm.
Those 3 words are so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me more. Dig deeper on that.
Yep.
Help
Yep.
me see you. I want to understand what you've gone through, what you've experienced. That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
And that's where we change the world,
Amen.
is that, especially with the people that throw hate.
Mm-hmm.
Not the friendlies, not the ones we won over for the basketball game. The ones that throw hate, those are the ones we need to listen to most. And not to the rhetoric, to their soul.
Mm-hmm.
And you lived through an experience like firsthand,
Yeah.
with the assassination of Charlie Kirk at UVU. You lived through that.
Mm-hmm.
Extreme hate to the point where someone was willing to kill another human being.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched from afar and from on campus the healing that happened. And would you share just a little bit of that, of how you brought healing to the campus? I know it was a group effort, but I also know you were heavily involved in that.
Yeah. Thank you, Curtis. I mean, again, it's a question we've received. Many of us across campus have received recently, and in the past, obviously 6 months. Um, I want to first start out by saying, this is my response is not a political response
Yeah.
in my mind. My response is a human-based response. Human life was lost on our campus, was taken on our campus, and and that is a tragedy for all involved, especially the family members of Charlie. Um, and those deeply impacted, both on site or those who were impacted in who observed or who um, it was a global event, a tragic event. Now, to your question of in the immediate, how did we heal the campus? Um, this is unprecedented. There's no playbook necessarily. I'm sure there is, but part of this is how do you respond as a campus when it comes to safety and the well-being of your campus community.
Yeah.
So literally from the first Wednesday night of September 10th, we began uh, receiving, support or communicating support for students in terms of mental health counseling support, reunification with belongings over the next couple of days, mental health counseling. We received a lot of support from the community, uh, a number of outlets, not only our own student health services team, but a lot of external outlets to do some counseling, grief counseling and other counseling, and victims advocates and those things. But in addition to all the immediate just stabilizing the campus, pausing academic classes and all those things, it was to get to a point where we could have the campus feel safe again for students and employees. Um, and we knew it would take time, and it has. It's taken time. Um, and yet, our faculty were amazing in terms of their flexibility with students to pause their studies, to layer in alternative assignments to as they continued to grieve um, beyond September 10th. We held a vigil for healing. Um, we continued with care stations all throughout the campus with information. Wherever students went, they saw a table, care station. With, I mean, again, everything from food to counseling, QR codes to puppies and other animals, comfort animals in various places to, again, just somebody to listen to. And we knew that our campus couldn't focus on the next class or the next administrative task, as we were all experiencing a very human, um, together, a very human experience. And so I would say that the emotional quotient in that moment from everybody on campus was way more important than the intellectual quotient
Mhm.
that we often tout in higher education.
Yeah.
We have learned post COVID that that what we want in leaders, what we want in teachers, what we want in people around us is actually a higher EQ than IQ. IQ almost is just in the background. EQ is something that we try to say to the campus over and over again. We try to communicate care, compassion, but also a sense of competence to say we will figure out how to stabilize this again, right? To be respectful in all directions
Yeah.
of what that means. And at the core, one of the questions that we've been asked is, well, how do you prevent this? And I think to myself, well, it's multifaceted, right? How do you prevent a bad actor from ever doing anything bad? I don't know if I'm equipped to answer that question. But one of the answers is that we just keep moving forward in respectful dialogue, in respectful debate, in respectful and healthy exchange of ideas, that we don't shy away from the conversation in the public eye, but that we can model that and we can, within higher ed, we can actually create spaces where students can practice that engagement across lines of difference in a healthy way.
Mhm.
And doing it in a way that says, I am actually practicing rewiring my brain to not demonize somebody who disagrees with me. It takes practice. It's not natural for humans to just say, sure, I have no emotions when somebody disagrees with me. It takes practice. It takes training. It takes a deliberate desire to want to be humanity driven or to want to lean into somebody else's humanity. So we still are navigating it as a
Yeah.
campus community, but I will tell you, the outpouring of support, the resilience from our students um, on all sides of the political spectrum has been pretty remarkable. Um, and so we will continue to be committed to the free exchange of ideas. Obviously, we want to do so in a safe and secure way, and but that's been part of our healing process at the campus.
Yeah. And was it Einstein that said the highest level of intelligence is being able to hold two competing
Mm-hmm.
ideas in your brain at the same
At the
time?
same time, yeah,
And you're right. It is a higher level of intelligence to be able to say, you know what, I I have a belief, and you have a very different belief, and I can put those together.
mm-hmm.
I can step above all the beliefs and say, you're human.
Yeah,
You're human, and I see you. And even have compassion for those that are throwing hate. Even have compassion and curiosity
mm-hmm.
to say, I want to sit down with you. After the event, I hosted a free healing symposium where filled the Silicon Slopes
Yeah,
offices and said, come and heal.
mm-hmm.
Just come and heal. And I had someone online that said, you are vile because you like Charlie Kirk. I hadn't even given my opinion of whether I like him or
Mm-hmm.
not, but just the fact that I was hosting a healing event because of what happened to Charlie Kirk, someone literally wrote, you are vile to
Yeah,
me. And I'm going to take him to lunch.
yeah,
I'm going to sit down with him and I'm going to say, help me understand. Help me see you.
yeah,
Help me see you as a human. Help me see you as someone just like me
yeah,
that has real feelings, real emotions, real experiences, and share that with me.
yeah. Uh, I want to just interject something here that I think I've been sharing more recently, and that and building off of your social media exchange example, or somebody that was, you said online, that was okay.
Mm-hmm.
I've had in the past, I've had some folks ask me, Kyle, healthy dissonance, by putting healthy in front of it, you're saying that not all dissonance is healthy. And I said, yes, there's such a thing as toxic dissonance, like abuse,
Yeah.
right? Like vitriol and trolls. And if you make an effort and you extend sort of an olive branch to say, I'd like to learn more, and they continue to abuse or they continue to, then for your own mental health and for your own grace to yourself and your own humanity, you can check out of that. You can
Yeah.
cut that toxicity out. And so, what I want to also be clear about is you and I obviously are, as we're talking and finishing each other's sentences on curiosity, there's also a principle of reciprocity and mutual respect. That if I make an effort online to respond to somebody who sends venom my way, and I try to give context, and they just continue to send venom my way, I'm not arguing that I keep having to be curious. I think if I offer up some curiosity and they don't reciprocate, then I need to also respect my own humanity to say I don't
Mm-hmm.
have the energy to respond to true trolls who just are out there to antagonize, to instigate, and who have not demonstrated one iota of respect for my identity. And so if there's not that reciprocity, then I just also want to be clear that it's not curiosity just for curiosity's sake that just keeps going. I think we need to also set our limits for our own mental health
Boundaries.
and boundaries, right?
Yeah.
Because when we make an offering, a humanity-based offering, and over time it's not reciprocated and it's not a healthy exchange, we have to understand that and recognize that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I've thought about this a lot because the it's someone I know actually that wrote this on social media, and it's, if I weren't in a place where I could hold space for that,
Mhm.
then a healthy boundary would not to go to lunch with him,
Right.
and it would not be to continue. But I do feel like I'm in a place where I can have that lunch, and
Perfect.
that I can see him, and that I can shift the tide
Yeah.
in him.
Yeah.
Not that that's my goal even,
Yeah.
but just that that will be the outcome,
Yeah.
just by allowing myself to truly see him, listen to him, try to understand him,
Yeah.
and we'll see how it goes. I'll let you know. But
Please do. And you said two critical things there that makes this situation unique. You already know him,
mhm,
and you yourself have practiced this enough to know how that you think, how you can actually take this conversation and lean in, right? Not everybody has practiced this as much. And not everybody, when comments come in on social media, not everybody has the relationship with
yeah,
people. So that's where I just want to make that clear distinction. We each have to make decisions within our own homes, online, with colleagues, with people in the community who, if we have history, for sure, yeah, let's lean in, right?
yeah,
Let's give that. But if it's just out of left field and they're not even putting their names and their faces to it and they're
yeah,
just trolling,
yeah,
I just don't want any mixed message out there. People like, I think Curtis and Kyle just said we have to lean in with curiosity to everybody that disagrees. It's like, no, there are boundaries, and we have to assess how deep that relationship matters to us.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. And yeah, I love everything you're saying, Kyle, because it's, it is how we heal. It is how we take divisiveness and turn it into connection. And, and after, I said curiosity is the antidote to anger.
mhm,
After the antidote works,
mhm,
after the remedy is applied, then comes love.
mm,
And love
yeah,
starts here.
yeah,
Love starts here, and then it extends. And we first have to love ourselves enough to be in that place where we can give that to others.
amen.
And maybe, maybe this lunch will go horribly wrong. And at the end of it, I can still show love.
Yep, yep,
That even if at the end he takes it from you're vile to you're evil or whatever, that I can still show love.
hmm,
And without letting that affect who I am,
perfect.
without throwing anger for anger or hate for hate.
Hmm.
Instead, showing love and let them be. Let them be. Like, I love the Let Them theory by Mel Robbins.
Hmm.
Such a
Hmm.
beautiful, beautiful book.
It is.
But
It
yeah,
is.
and that way I can continue to live with peace
Yeah.
and find that every single day. And peace is the one counter or the one emotion that doesn't have a counterfeit.
Yeah.
So where does Kyle find peace?
Oh, again, this is a question that it almost feels like every 5 years it shifts a little bit,
Mm,
and the answer to this question grows up and it matures every time I have to respond to, or every time I get to respond to something like this. So I find peace in a number of ways. First and foremost, I am a person of faith. I have my faith and I respect other people's faiths and beliefs. And I think anytime we get a chance to believe in something bigger and in a higher power, there is a certain grounding that happens that says, while I may not have all the answers, and I definitely don't see what's in front of me, there's enough of a grounding, and there's enough of a perspective gained that says I can control what I can control. I have faith in a God. And those two things That sets a strong foundation. Then what layers onto that sort of foundation of peace? It's the support network. It's everywhere I turn, seeing really good people trying to do really good things. And it starts with my own wife. It starts with my kids.
She's amazing.
Michelle is,
She's amazing.
I mean,
I can echo that with Patty.
right?
Yeah.
Like, so I know now I'm taking it into the walls of the Reyes home, but like almost every morning I get back from some exercise, she's going on her walk or whatever it might be, and we literally just hug. And I'm like, you're my comfort blanket in all directions. Without saying anything, we just embrace, and I know that we know that there's things to work out with our kids. There's things I'm navigating in my job. There's things she's navigating in her coaching program. There's the world politics and divisiveness out there. But for moments when we just hold each other, it's like it's a recentering of a team dynamic. And I know not everyone has that, but that's where it layers. So you see what I like to think about it is you see the foundation of peace with layers to it, right?
Mm.
Of a God or a belief in a higher being, which brings perspective, of a support network of my wife and my kids, a support network of friends and colleagues and community members and friends. And then the final piece to that, like once I have that foundation, peace is saying, Kyle, you're no longer early in your profession. You might want to establish yourself as credible and you want to, show your chops and I belong here and all that
Yeah.
stuff. And at some point you get to a point where you're like, I truly, and I say this with all authenticity, I don't need any more titles to be satisfied with who I am as a professional, as a passionate educator. I don't need to be at the Ivy League schools. I don't need to have, I'm very good in terms of very comfortable, I should say, in knowing that how I show up, when I show up, for the purposes I show up, I feel very good about those things.
Mm.
And so, but I can only have those things after the foundational layers there. And so again, I feel privileged because not everyone has what I just articulated. My students all don't have it. It's what feeds my why of showing up at UVU. It's what feeds my why when I come home from a long day of work and I just notice that one of my kids is sort of retreated and not engaged with kind of the family humor or whatever we're doing at that moment. And I say, hey, how's it going? And I don't want to talk about it right now. Give them space. You want to play ping pong? And just helping another human being navigate some of the things that they don't have the perspective I have. They may not have the foundational things that have been built up over the years, and that's okay. But my mind immediately turns to what is my responsibility to now start to build some of those foundations for other human beings? Can I help stabilize them with their support network? Can I connect them with a higher being, whatever that is? Can I help them find perspective when they don't believe that they have any future?
Mm.
And so that circular piece is very healing for me. It's finding it for myself and then now helping others find it. And it feeds my soul. And then I get to feed others and it feeds my soul. And so a long answer to a very deep and profound question.
Thanks, Kyle. I'm so grateful you're willing to share that with us. Thank you for being such a great friend for so many years.
Thank you.
And thank you for what you've done to influence so many lives across decades. It's been so fun to watch from the sidelines as you do change hearts, change lives, change destinies. And for that, I personally am grateful.
Thank you, Curtis. It's been an honor. Thank you.
Now we got to go heal the world.
Let's do it.
Let's do
do
it. Awesome. Thank you again for joining us on this week's episode of Counterfeit Emotions. I hope that you feel the peace that Kyle talked about. I hope that you have a renewed dedication to meet anger and hatred with curiosity and with love. I hope that as you go about your day, whether it's on social media or in person, that you can use those powerful three words, tell me more, to start to see others, to start to see those kids that may be called holy terrors or those ones from other countries or the ones in your own home, that you can make a difference and you can start to heal the world where you are at. I hope you found this episode helpful. If so, please like and subscribe and share it with others, especially those that are struggling with the divisiveness in today's world. Till next week. Thanks.